I've been diving deep into Unity for almost 6 months with my spare time. Through this intro video, I would like to show you what I've done with it so far. As you can see, I've made myself some prototypes to learn using YouTube tutorials and AI as my main learning source. From code splitting using inheritance and composition to try implementing object pooling, finite state machines, and animations. I use only free assets such as from Kenny's and have even made all of the 5 prototypes from Unity's official junior programmer pathway using those programming concepts I've mentioned. It was a fun journey. I've even considered making the same kind of content to document my Unity progress. It's just things happen. Work, device limit, and time constraints hits pretty hard. Like that. Now I'm just trying to roll with it as I get back up. For context, I'm a contract full-time front-end and mobile app developer at day and a part-time full-stack web dev lecturer at night. Unfortunately, I've got no device support from my workplace, resulting in my machine slowly being ate up by my work's projects. And things doesn't look good for me to keep using Unity for now. Here's me trying to learn GDScript in a day. Pretty ambitious. But it was actually a nice little experience thanks to GDQuest learning app. As a TypeScript developer myself, I find that GDScript has some data type similarities to JavaScript, which is nice. This is a new starting point for me, and I would like to try to learn this publicly and share my learning as it is. Hopefully, someone can gain something from this journey too. Since I'm just a newbie in Godot, I'm still a little sporadic in how I approach my learning. Since I knew Godot's been pretty famous at being a great 2D engine, I decided to lean on that and focus on making features first instead of trying to do too much visually. Since I'm not doing any 3D for now, I decided to start with TileMap. I think that's the most logical thing to do for now, as I need something for my player to step on and basically understand how to do basic level design. And thanks to Code with Ref's TileMap tutorial, it's my main source of knowledge and my TileMap practice. So far it's been pretty nice. I learned how to paint and erase my tiles using Rect tool and Line tool. I did learn about the basics of nodes and scenes and its relatability to Unity's prefab and components prior. And yeah, here's my first tile map in Godot. It's my first venture into Godot's built-in script editor. And today I'll be trying to make an animated sprite 2D. I did make the sprite preparation prior. So here's me trying to get the reference of that animated sprite using export, which is kind of like Unity serial as field. Always start from simple stuff first. Here's my first test, which made me realize that I probably need to add camera to make my window size better. Yep. And so at this point I ran into some issues. It's a pretty long one to solve. So my input is not actually being read because I'm using C# version of Godot. Because I thought someday that I want to try C# with Godot and actually compiled differently than the original version. So I ended up swapping the version back to the original one, and it's actually working afterwards. So far, I kind of like using Godot's internal code editor. It reminds me of the time I learned JavaScript when direct AI access is not actually ready in my VS Code, which resulted in me having more conscious repetition in using the code and makes it click better. And here's my player sprite walking in place. Okay, it's time to make my player character to be able to move, not just animating. And today I learned about Character Body 2D, a node that acts somewhat like Unity's character controller component. And since I want my player to be able to bump to things, I added collision shape 2D node. And it's pretty neat that Godot even reminded me of that in the scene tree when I added the Character Body 2D. And as always, reading the docs is always the best way to learn. Here I decided to let my animation be controlled from my input built-in method. And later, I'll use process and physics process to handle my layers movement. As I tested, I found an error, which is caused by forgetting to assign the animated sprite 2D node to my player script. Here is my animation input test. Thank God it works as expected. And now I'm trying to implement what I read from the docs in regards to movement. At this point, I didn't really realize that velocity is actually part of Character Body 2D node. And here I not yet understand that I need to extend the script to Character Body 2D instead of Node 2D. That's why I got a little trouble in implementing movement. Now, after some adjustment, I finally gained access to the built-in velocity property and move and slide function from extending Character Body 2D to my player script properly. Now my player can actually move for real with animation. It's pretty cool, but there's a slight problem, which I'll address later. But for now, here it is. Lately, I've been having a great experience with using Gemini's coding partner Gem as my coding guru. So far, I felt like it has pretty spot-on answers to all of my questions. And here I finally found the issue that I need to fix in order to make my player animation not stuck mid-movement. I also just found out that Vector 2 has a length method that is very helpful to find out if an object is actually moving or not. And here I'm trying to implement movement with directions so that my player can face the right direction during movement. Splitting string in GDScript look very similar to JavaScript, so it's pretty nice. Little that I know here that I actually made a major mistake in multiplying my player speed with delta time. I'll let you see it in action. See how slow it moves. Here I'm actually removing the delta and test it from 600, and look at that. And I finally fixed it here. Finally understand that move and slide has already incorporated delta time automatically. And now time to learn from the goat himself, Brakis, where I learned about Physics 2D Paint to Tileset, which enables my player to be able to bump to walls. I remember that when I'm still using Unity, I felt like the 2D experience is not as smooth as what I've been having in Godot. And here it is, testing time. Now it bumps, which is pretty cool. I'm slowly getting used to Godot's node and find its scene organization to be simpler to understand and use. Today I'll be trying Area 2D node to make simple scene transition. Since that Area 2D needs to be bumped, I add Collision Shape 2D so that my player can interact with it. So first I need to shape the rectangular shape 2D to be the size of the door. That form has also been my major knowledge source for learning Godot. Here I was following his tutorial in how he implements this simple scene transition. Now that my Area 2D has been set up, it's now time to get my first hands-on experience in working with Signal. kind of like how explicit and customizable signal is. Like I can simply create custom signal for my script and let other scripts communicate with it easily. I think Signal is kind of similar to Unity's event listener, though I never actually used it before. Yeah, I don't want to bore you with how bad it looks for the interior, but it serves the purpose. And here I'm trying to export a selection of strings, and I don't know yet how to do that. So let's ask my coding partner. I see, so it's called export enum. That's cool. Now I can actually export a selection of strings that I can use in my player script inspector. And let's implement that. Then I add another area 2D node to my interior so that my player can transition out of it. Setting the signal up, so don't forget to attach a script to wherever you want to attach the signal to, and use get3.change scene to file, then select the transition you want to transition, then testing time. Cool, it's working. It's not looking too good, but it's working, so I'm still happy nonetheless.